Today I am sharing 3 recipes for 3 of the favorite sauces that we use around our house a lot. I try to do my best to keep these prepared and on hand and in the refrigerator so that we're not tempted to grab bottles of things that are not as healthy. Hey, friends, and welcome to Leanstead. If you are new here and we've not met, my name is Hope. And on this channel, I love talking about simplifying life and simplifying my health. And one of the great ways that I'm doing that is through intermittent fasting and healthy eating. So, for the past 10 days or so, it has basically been survival of the fittest around our house. My husband contracted the C word, not cancer, but a certain virus that has been going around for the past 3 years in the US. Thankfully, I did not test positive myself, but definitely had some version of the flu. It's been about 10 days of body aches, congestion, nausea, intestinal issues, fever. I mean, you name it, and we've been dealing with it. For the most part, it has been anything goes in our house, and we have eaten a lot of things that I'm not proud of. But today we are working on getting back on track. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is by cleaning out the refrigerator of some of the stuff that has creeped in over the past 2 weeks and to put together things that we know are much healthier than the store bought version. And I am concentrating on homemade mayonnaise, ketchup, creamy Italian dressing, and what I like to call Guthrie sauce, or if you are familiar with maybe Zaxby's or Jack's and their come along sauce. This is a very similar sauce to that. Guthrie's is the name of a restaurant that is in Alabama. And if you are from Auburn, then you know what I'm talking about. In the past, I have shared my recipe for mayonnaise, and that is the base of a couple of these sauces. So I'm not going to show that on this video, but I will link the video below where I show how to make that. So I'm going to start today's with making a batch of homemade ketchup. Some people will make this. You can do it with other ingredients, and you can use an artificial sweetener or monk fruit or something like that. I prefer to use just plain sweeteners. I typically stick to honey, maple syrup, and just regular granulated sugar. But in this recipe, I'm using a little bit of brown sugar, and you can definitely control the degree of that. I've kept the amount on the lower side, but you can definitely tweak that to make it a little bit sweeter if that's the way you like your ketchup. So, in a small saucepan, we're going to add a can of, I have organic tomato paste here, but obviously you can use whichever you have on hand. Then to this, I'm going to add a cup of filtered water. And having filtered water means that it won't have the chlorine in it, and that way it won't interfere with your taste. Then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. This gives your ketchup that tangy flavor that we're all familiar with. Then we're going to add a tablespoon, that's 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Here I'm using a teaspoon, so I've obviously put 3 teaspoons in to equal that 1 tablespoon. Then a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of onion powder, and then an 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground clove. This is kind of one of those surprising ingredients, but it helps to give a kind of tickle your taste buds feeling.
and a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Then also I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Then top it off with a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Then you're just going to whisk to combine all of these ingredients, and once they're thoroughly combined, we are going to move this over to the stovetop. So here I left my ketchup on the stovetop for about a 1/2 hour to simmer. And this is going to be a matter of preference for you. So if you like your ketchup to be thicker, you may want to leave it on the stovetop a little bit longer. Basically, you just want to heat that, all the ingredients come together, and then once you've reached your desired thickness, remove that, let it cool down a little bit, then transfer that into a glass container. Here I've just used a regular mason jar with one of these great little plastic tops. And don't forget to label it so you know what it is in the refrigerator. And it's also a good idea to put a date on there.
The next recipe I am making is a creamy Italian dressing. I love a good salad, but I must admit that it is far easier to just grab a jar of something in the refrigerator that is already prepared, and I am more likely to make a salad if I do have dressing that is already in a bottle. However, if you were to check out the ingredients that are in most salad dressings, they are filled with things like high fructose corn syrup and lots of unhealthy oils, especially soybean oil, which is something I'm definitely trying to avoid for myself. So, this recipe is a creamy Italian dressing. It's a very good dressing on a salad or on a sub type sandwich. I am just trying to make some things ahead of time so that my future self is going to really appreciate them because it'll make it easier for me to eat healthy when that eating window does open.
So this recipe I am combining in my Ninja smoothie maker. I'm starting out with 1 cup of what I call good mayo, but I'm using my homemade. You can use your own. Then I'm adding a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar to that. And then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. Top it with a teaspoon of some dried parsley, or you can use fresh if you have that instead, and another teaspoon of oregano, plus a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. You also could use fresh there if you have that on hand. Then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Then I'm going to put the top back on that, put the blender together, and blend that till it has all combined really well and the dressing is emulsified. Then I'm going to take that out of the blender jar and then add that to a mason jar as well, like I did with the ketchup. Again, you want to make sure you've got all of that out, and don't miss, if you're using a blender like this, don't miss all the stuff that gets stuck at the top. That's a good bit of dressing. So I'm just labeling this creamy Italian and getting ready to put that in the refrigerator.
The last sauce that I'm making is the Guthrie sauce that I talked about earlier. This I have shared before, and there is another video where I show how to make the chicken strips that are keto friendly. I'll link that as well. It is a very easy recipe, and if you are trying to watch the carbs, it's a wonderful way to get that taste of chicken fingers, but without the carbs that are usually in the breading. This sauce is also good on fries. If you love to make oven fries like our family does, then this is one of our favorite ways to eat that. And we also like to eat the same sauce on hamburgers as well.
Here I'm mixing this just in a small bowl, and I'm starting out with a half cup of, again, that good mayo or homemade mayo. But if you don't have homemade, definitely you can use what you have on hand. Now, we're going to use some of that ketchup that we just made. I'm adding a 1/4 cup of that to the bowl. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Key ingredient here too is a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I'm adding in a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Then all you're going to do here is simply blend that. If you whisk it together, it works really well. Kind of takes a minute to make sure you have all that mayonnaise completely incorporated in it, but once you have a smooth consistency, then you can just take your Guthrie sauce, again, add it to a mason jar, label that up, and move it to the refrigerator so it's ready.
So, friends, there you have it. 3 very, very healthy sauces to go in your refrigerator to be prepared for tailgating days, maybe this fall. And you can definitely feel much better about knowing what exactly all the ingredients are in these sauces and know that there's very little sugar or unhealthy oils in these sauces. So that's all I have for you today. Till we meet in the next video, happy fasting, friends.